W5FC.
Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
It starts in 2 minutes. Anyone needs the repeater, please do so now. Please use the repeater now. Hey, my name's Tom, and I'll be your net control station for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy, and our purposes are to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign, break, and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? Please come out. This is a directed net, so please do not transmit without direction from net control, that would be me, and stations are reminded to ID at the end of their transmissions. This weekly net operates on this frequency, is 146.880 megahertz with a field tone of 110.9 hertz. Check and see Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio video links are available online. Go to W5FC.org right now for a complete list, and remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome, and you need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate this evening. This net will be approximately 90 minutes long and is structured in the following parts. We have journal announcements, text access Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope, National Space Society events, discussion topic of the evening, what you can see in the sky tonight, a featured constellation or object or topic, recent astronomical discoveries, space exploration and space history, and visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and the 73 round. We may or may not get to all of these parts. All amateurs licensed transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll take low power short time check-ins. For the low power short time, please come down with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from. Let me know if you're one or the other, low power short time or both. All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead and go to general check-ins. If you'd like to join us, please come with your call sign, phonetically your name and where you're transmitting from. General check-ins.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill in Irving.
Oh my, usually get more check-ins than that. N5BB, Mr. Bill in Irving, thanks for taking the TechNet this evening. I'll take it some check-ins. Don't leave me hanging here, folks. We got N5BB. Additional check-ins, please come now.
Killer Golf 5, Papa, Mike in Richardson.
This is Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brendan DeSoto. Kilo 35, Oscar Zulu Tango, Carolyn and Louisville.
This is Alpha, Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel, Robert and Richardson. Oh, Foxtrot 5, Zulu Bravo Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch. This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James and Carrollton. Kilo Alpha 5, Papa India Papa, Bill in Richardson.
Okay, much better. I had to do some speed writing here, but I got KT5P, Mike in Richardson, WB50ZL, Miss Brenda, in DeSoto. I'll figure it out. KC50ZT, Miss Carolyn, in Louisville, my neighbor down the street. AA5AH, Robert in Richardson. K5ZBL, Bill Perez, over in Farmers Branch. KT5 Whiskey Victor Lima, Jay and Carrollton, welcome. KA5PAP, Bill in Richardson, welcome. I think I said Carrollton for Jay. I hope I did. Otherwise I skipped down the line. Distributions, please come now.
November 5, Alpha Bravo Alpha, Andre in Dallas via Echolink.
Kilo Golf 5, Quebec, X-Ray India, Glen and Rockwall.
All right, I've got N5ABN, Andre Dallas, Echolink. Rockwell. Any additional over-air check-ins come now?
November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Tony, sorry, I don't know if you got me ready. Tony in Dallas.
Okay, I got NT5TM, Tony in Dallas. I'll move over to Echo Link and I'll come back and do final check-ins in a moment. Well, additional check-ins. I should never say final. Echo Link only. Please come now with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from. I will give you extra time because you'll need it. Echo Link only. Please come now. Oh, man, nothing. Well, I can tell it's the holidays. By the way, if you're interested, go to Me TV. You want to see a 55-year-old TV program, the Christmas special, Return to Earth, Lost in Space, over on Me TV. Let's see. Let me go ahead and ask any additional check-ins. Please come now with your call sign, phonetically your name and where you're transmitting from. Any mode. All right, let's go ahead and start the net. Doing any general announcements this evening. They can be of ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. Please come now.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
NT5PM. Go ahead, Tony. That's yours.
Tom, don't worry, I'll talk more later. For now, I would just like to remind everyone that this is not the last set of the evening. There is an afterglow movie discussion coming up at 10:30 tonight. We're going to be talking about the 1975 David Bowie oddity, The Man Who Fell to Earth. Also, we do have some information about Winter Field Day up at w5sc.org if you have a look at the TechNet News Post or just the right-hand menu on the site. You can find a link to a post with more information about Winter Field Day and a sign-up sheet. I'd like to thank David KG5EIU for those links set up. Just a quick note, I'm going to be taking the night off for Christmas Eve to spend time with someone I love. I hope you'll do that too. There will be no GeekNet on Monday, Christmas Eve. No GeekNet on Monday, Christmas Eve. This is NT5TM. Back to net.
Okay, very good, Tony. Don't blame me in the least. Anyone need any fills? Please come now. Additional check-ins.
Kilo Golf 5, Foxtrot Papa November. That's Kilo Golf 5, Foxtrot Papa November. The name's Guy. Golf, Uniform Yankee, coming from Austin, mobile.
Kilo 5, Alpha, November, Papa, Alan in Dallas.
Okie dokie, we got Kilo Golf 5, Foxtrot Papa November, Guy in Arlington Mobile. Welcome, Guy. K5 Alpha November Papa, Alan in Dallas. Welcome back. Any additional check-ins? All right, I'll go ahead and give the usual announcements. I'm going to truncate them a little bit since we have a smaller than normal net, but that's okay. Don't forget, AMSAT, Amateur Radio Satellite Group, has 2 nets available to Dallas residents Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. You'll need that central time here locally. You'll need Echolink installed and you registered. You can find the net under groups and the word AMSAT. You can also listen via live audio links. They're available on our website, which is amsatnet.com. The net originates in Houston, Texas on one of their 2-meter repeaters. And they have everything you can imagine involving amateur satellites. Also, the Dallas AMSAT net here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area is available locally on Wednesday evenings at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, which is 147.140. Built on a 110.9 with a positive offset. Don't forget all the DARC nets. We've got a bunch of them. There's one every night of the week. The ARRL net at 6:30 p.m. If you're interested in getting into traffic handling, message traffic handling, this is a great training net that you can be involved in. It's from 6:30 to 7 o'clock every evening on this repeater. And then on Mondays, we have a net every night of the week. We have the first week Ham Fixins, second week is MCOM 101, third week is Ham Fixins again because we love to cook. That's a cooking net. And then the fourth week is Geek Net, and then if there's a fifth week, we always have a surprise net. Now, tonight is the night of nets, so we had TechNet earlier from 7 to 8, and then from 9 until 10:30, which is what you're listening to now, is the Astronomy net, known as Skynet, and then at 10:30 we have the Afterglow Movie net, which we talk about a particular movie that has been assigned with credit, by the way. You get 3 credit hours for this net because it takes 3 frickin' hours to get through the net. Well, almost. Anyway, this is what we've got. Here's the synopsis for tonight's net. Uncle Martin was hesitant to open the door. That nosy Detective Brown was always staking out the apartment, hoping someday to trip the Martian up. But not this time. A stoic, slender man stood at the door. Martin opened it, and the man spoke. Pardon me. Can you spare some intergalactic antimatter to power my spaceship? Martin realized he'd left the garage door open, and his single-man spaceship sat there for everyone to see. Worse, he'd left the four-way flashers on. Brown would have a field day. So join us for the next Afterglow movie, The Man Who Fell to Earth, in 1975, tonight at 10:30 p.m. Even if you didn't see it, it's okay. You can check in and ask about this very weird film from 1975, Limousines Extra. You can keep up with all the DARC nets and events and activities by going to the COLT website, which is w5sc.org. All right, next section is the Dallas Astronomical Society events where when you can look through a telescope. Anybody on frequency would like to discuss TAS, please come out. You can go to texasastro.org if you'd like to find out more about the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas by going to texasastro.org. Okay, let's move on to the next section, National Space Society Events and Activities. Bill, N5BB, you got anything for us this week? I know it's a holiday, but maybe something cool is going on. Go ahead, Bill. N5BB from KE5I6. KE5PAP, Bill, go ahead.
Sorry, my wife misunderstood the call there. Sorry. This is KA5PIP.
It's okay, Bill. It's good to have somebody there that can keep listening on the radio. I'm good with that. That happens to me occasionally, too. Very good. And I corrected your call. KA5 Papa India Papa. Bill, did I get it right, or is it something else?
You are absolutely correct. Thank you, my friend.
Hey, Bill. No problem. Thanks for checking in this evening. This is KE5ICX. Let's see. We have a discussion topic of the evening. We had to do some reshuffling. Well, Ms. Brenda, WB5OZ, would you like to go ahead and tell us about the discussion topic this evening, which is where's all that water on Mars? Go ahead from KE5ICX.
Hello, this is WB5OZL. Where's all the water on Mars? Water everywhere, nor any drop to drink. Epitomized terrestrial seafaring exploration, and precisely the same problem may haunt any future explorers on Mars. There's plenty of water on Mars, but it's frozen, locked in water minerals, tucked away below the surface, a combination of these challenges, which is why we still don't know where it all is. That's a problem for Rick Davis, Assistant Director for Science and Exploration in the Planetary Science Division at NASA, because he is heading the agency's project to evaluate potential human base sites on the raised red planet. But he thinks tackling this problem could help bring scientists and would-be explorers together. The beauty of this is, it's not an us or them, Davis told Science.com after a presentation at the conference of the American Geophysical Union held here last week. I think most people who are actually thinking about this problem are beginning to realize there's like a 90-95% overlap in what information they need about Mars. For Davis and his compatriots, water and ice represent a cure for, on the one hand, all the ways humans rely on water to survive, and because it can be split into hydrogen and oxygen as rocket fuel to carry people and cargo back to Earth. And scientists want to study Martian ice in hopes of learning more about the planet's climate history and potential past habitability. In Davis's view, both groups are stymied by an important blind spot in current instruments, which means they can't understand what's happening just below the surface, less than 33 feet, 10 meters down. That's a particularly important region of the subsurface because it's the most accessible for humans and robots alike. In order to fill in that blank terrain, Davis said we would need to put an instrument called synthetic aperture radar, commonly used in earth science to study the impacts of natural disasters, among other uses, into orbit around Mars. That's an idea that has been discussed, but is not yet an official target for a future mission. And Davis sees another area where different communities pursuing different goals on Mars share a specific need: monitoring and forecasting the weather. Earth. This will help scientists better understand planetary processes, and with the explorers, we need to know when weather conditions would deter their flights to or from Mars. Think of rocket launch scripts and airport flight delays here on Earth. Better weather data will also feed planetary protection efforts at Mars, whose work to protect sensitive areas where life is and has been most plausible. Humans can avoid these areas themselves, but they still contaminate them from a distance if microbes or other germs are blown across the planet's surface. Once humans go there, we're going to have releases. The joints on spacesuits will never be pure. You're going to have accidents in terms of habitat, David said. Understanding where all the junk goes that gets released from a human base is really a prevailing wind issue. All that means that when it comes to water and weather, groups of Martian-minded humans may have more in common than they sometimes think, and could perhaps collaborate to tackle deep technology challenges and large price tags. All three of these communities are rapidly converging on the idea that we really need to understand what we're dealing with, David said. Okay, back to that. This is WB5OZL.
Thank you, Ms. Brenda, and I appreciate that. This is KE5ICX. I'm net control for tonight. Skynet! We'll go ahead and see if there are additional check-ins. Please come now with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from, and then we'll move on to the next section of the net. Please come now. All right, next section of the net is what you can see in the sky over the next couple of weeks. This comes from earthsky.org/tonight. I wish I were as smart as them, but I'm not, so I'm just going to read to you what they got. If you want to go to w5fc.org, you'll find the link here. East in the evening, there is a chart. Yes, a chart. Why is the chart important? Because I'm going to read about what the chart is important about. On December 22nd, 2018, we'll bring the final full moon of the year, falling less than a day after the December solstice. How close are the solstice and full moon in 2018? The solstice is December 21st at 4:23 p.m. Central Standard Time. Full moon is December 22nd at 11:49 a.m. Central Standard Time. So the solstice and full moon fall less than a day apart. That means that although the Northern Hemisphere has the longest winter night on December 21st, the lamp of a nearly full moon lit up the nighttime from dusk until dawn on solstice night. On December 22nd, the night after the solstice, the moon will be technically past full as seen in the Americas, but it's still look around and, well, I'm not sure what that means, but it's still full round, I guess, and in the night sky. It looks like they have some grammatical mistake. This didn't make any sense, but they wrote it. On December 26th, the moon will appear skirting near the upraised club of the easy-to-spot constellation Orion the Hunter, which is, by the way, our constellation this evening, as shown on the chart on the top of the post. So the last time the December solstice and full moon happened less than a day apart was in 2010, and the next will happen on a Saturday, are you ready, 2029. So mark that on your calendar. In North America, we call December full moon the long night moon, the cold moon, or the moon before Yule. In the southern hemisphere, where it's summer right now, names for this full moon include strawberry moon, honey moon, and rose moon. 2018's December full moon counts as a third closest and thereby the third largest of this year's 13 full moons. But there's some disagreement as to whether this full moon is a supermoon. And there is a link, you can find it there to find out what they're talking about. Oh, wait, there's more. There's a whole other page here on this. It says the moon appears full to the eye for 2 or 3 nights. However, astronomers regard the moon as full at a precisely defined instant when the moon is exactly 80 degrees opposite of the sun. The full moon instant arrives on December 22nd at 1749 UTC. As U.S. time zones, that places the full moon at 11:49 Central Time. That's 11:49 a.m. As seen from the Americas, the December 22nd moon is technically a waning gibbous moon. From most of the Americas, the full moon happens during the daylight hours on the December 22nd, when the moon is still beneath the horizon. But no matter, look for the full moon to light up in the eastern sky around dusk or nightfall on December 22nd. It'll climb highest for the night around midnight and then sit low in the west at daybreak. As seen from the northern hemisphere, December full moon mimics the lofty path of the June summer solstice sun. That's because the sun is so far south right now, and because at the vicinity of the full moon, the moon rises and sets pretty much opposite of the sun. Therefore, this December 2018 full moon rises and sets far north due east and west, much as the sun does in the June solstice. Now, I know you don't live in Bell, Alaska, but if you did, you'd see no sun at all around this December solstice. But this solstice full moon will be out all hours around the clock, play acting as the nighttime sun of summer. As seen from the southern hemisphere, meanwhile, the same December full moon follows the low path of the June winter solstice sun. Want to find out the sunrise, sunset, moonrise, moonset times for your city? You can go to their website. Oh, they tricked me into saying that. There is a website that you can go to. Just type that into your favorite engine and you'll find it. Unlike full moon of December 2018, the full moons of December 2010 and December 2029, and there's a link for those. Also, less than a day from solstice, display the total eclipses. I guess that's, you can go to the books. Changing this website up, they've added links to the descriptions, what they want, but they're in paragraphs that used to be just links. Okay, cool. Or not. Full moon comes on December, this is the bottom line, full moon comes on December 22nd. One day after the solstice, the last time the December solstice and full moon happened, less than 1 day apart, was in 2010. The next one will be in 2029, Saturday. And then the following from the U.S. Naval Observatory, which you can see in the sky this week. And this is what they say. We probably won't get anything from them next week, but we do get it from them today, since the moon brightens the big winter night sky this week, beaming down from the stars of the Great Winter Circle as she waxes to full moon, which is on the 22nd at 12:49 Eastern Standard. December's full moon is popularly known as the long night moon or the moon before Yule. Look for Luna nestled among the stars of the Hyades star cluster, just to the west of the bright star Aldebaran in Taurus the Bull, on the evening of the 20th. During the course of the evening, you can watch this moon occult a number of brighter stars in Hyades. Use binoculars to watch these stars wink out as the moon's dark limb moves eastward through the cluster. The winter solstice occurs on the 21st at 5:23 Eastern. This is the moment when the center of the sun's parent disk reaches the ecliptic longitude of 270 degrees. This is also the time when the old soul reaches the southernmost declination in its parent path around the sky. The solstice marks the shortest day of the year for residents in the northern hemisphere. Here in Washington, 9 hours and 27 minutes is daylight that day. This is also the midpoint in the solstice season that plays out over the course of the month. We have already experienced the year's earliest sunset, which occurred at 4:46 p.m. Eastern Standard on December 7th in Washington. By the year's end, we'll add 10 minutes to the time but our latest sunrise won't occur until after the start of the new year, when the sun rises at 7:27 a.m. on January 4th. Seeming lag between the latest sunrise and earliest sunset is an artifact of our method of timekeeping, where the seconds that define our timescales are defined by an inflexible oscillation of atoms. If we use sundials as our time reference, this phenomenon would all coincide with the solstice. We have an in-depth discussion of solstice phenomenon on our website. And this is KE5ICX. Moon's bright glare casts a silvery glow over the winter evening landscapes, and in the process washes out most of the stars associated with the autumnal sky. One exception is the star Fomalhaut, which can be found on the southwest horizon in the early evening. This solitary star is the 17th brightest in the sky, and it is notable for being the first star to have a planet directly imaged by the Hubble Space Telescope and optical wavelengths. Located just over 25 light years away, it shines with a luminosity of about 16 suns. By late evening, Fomalhaut is gone, but in the east there are a variety of bright, colorful stars to enjoy. 9 of the 25 brightest stars in the sky are located within the winter circle, which includes the distinctive outline of Orion the Hunter. Unlike Fomalhaut, Orion stars are years for Alnilam, the middle star in Orion's belt. Alnilam is one of the most luminous stars in the sky, shining with more power than 500,000 suns. It's a very bright young star, perhaps only 5 million years old. Its life will be brief by cosmic standards in another 5 million years, and it will die in a spectacular fashion as a supernova explosion. The moon also washes out the soft greenish glow of Comet 46 Papa, which passed close to the Earth on the 16th. If you live in a dark location, you should be able to find it in binoculars over the course of the next couple of weeks. And it may be visible to the naked eye once the moon moves into the morning sky. This week, the comet moves into the western part of the constellation Auriga, the carrier, which will be in the same binocular field of view as the bright star Capella between the 21st and 25th. Mars is still keeping pace with the advancing sun and can be seen in the meridian as evening twilight grows deeper. You'll find it below the nice binocular asterism, the circuit of Pisces, throughout the week. Venus continues to dazzle the morning sky. You should have no trouble spotting her before sunrise in the southeast. She is at her peak brightness for this current morning apparition, and if you can keep the direct rays of the sun behind and obstruct, you should be able to spot her well into the morning hours. If you have a flat southeastern horizon, try to spot Mercury about 40 minutes before sunrise. The fleet planet is speeding to the far side of the sun, so this will be the last week to get a morning view of him this year. And this is KE5ICX Net Control for tonight, Skynet. Give me a second here to reset. All right, here we go. I've got the Constellation this evening, so I had to increase the font a little bit so I can read this. Let's see, we have the Constellation Orion tonight, part 1. So Betelgeuse is one of the stars in this constellation. And I'm also doing the video, so I got a little bit of everything going on here. So if you want to go to w5fc.org or follow the video as best as I can do here, we have Betelgeuse. I'm pointing at it right now, and this is what they say about it. It says the 0.42 magnitude is the second brightest star in Orion, and it's the 8th brightest star in the sky. It's one of the most luminous stars known as a red supergiant and is a Class M. Some recent findings, however, suggest that the star emits more light, making it more luminous than most stars in its class, so the classification is updated. Betelgeuse is one of the largest stars known with an apparent diameter of 0.043 to 0.056 arc seconds. It is difficult to get an accurate measurement because the star appears to change shape from time to time, and as a result, a huge mass loss. It has a large envelope surrounding it. Betelgeuse is a semi-regular variable star and varies from 0.2 to 1.2 magnitude, which means that it occasionally outshines its bright neighbor, Rigel. This, however, only happens very rarely. Betelgeuse is believed to be about 10 million years old, which is not much for a red supergiant, but it is thought to evolve very rapidly because of its enormous mass. It will likely explode as a supernova in the next million years. When it does, it will be easy to find in the sky, not just at night, but also in the broad daylight. At its current distance from the solar system, the supernova will shine brighter than the moon and will be the brightest ever recorded supernova in history. Next up is Bellatrix, sometimes known as the Amazon star from the Latin word for the female warrior. It is the third brightest star in Orion. It is a hot, luminous Class B blue-white giant star, magnitude 1.64 magnitude. As an eruptive variable, its magnitude varies between 1.59 and 1.64 magnitude, and is one of the hottest stars visible to the naked eye. Within a few million years, Bellatrix will become an orange giant and eventually a massive white dwarf. Next we have Pi, or Orionis, is a relatively loose group of stars that constitute Orion's shield. Unlike most binary and multiple stars that share the same Bayer designations, the star and Pi Orionis system is fairly wide apart. Pi 1 Orionis and Pi 6 Orionis are separated by almost 9 degrees. Next is Orion's belt. This is one of the best-known asterisms in the night sky. It is formed by 3 bright stars. From left to right is Mintaka, Alnilam, and Alnitak. Hope I did that right. Mintaka is rightmost star when observed from the northern hemisphere facing to the south. It is an eclipsing binary variable. The primary component is a double star consisting of a Class B giant and a hot Class O star, which orbit each other every 5.63 days. It eclipses each other slightly, causing a 0.2 magnitude drop in luminosity. The system also contains a magnitude 7 star separated by 52 seconds from the primary component and a very faint 14 magnitude star in between. Mintaka is the faintest of the 3 stars in Orion's belt, but is also the closest bright star to the celestial equator, and it rises and sets almost exactly east to west. Orion, or Epsilon Orionis, is a hot, bright Class B blue supergiant, magnitude 1.7, and is surrounded by the reflection nebula NGC 1990. illuminated by the light emitted by the star. The wind blowing from the star's surface has an estimated age of around 4 million years. It's losing mass and its internal hydrogen fusion is shutting down. Alnium will soon evolve into a red supergiant, one much brighter than Betelgeuse, and eventually explode as a supernova. Alnitka is a multiple star system, magnitude 1.72. The brightest component of the star is another hot blue giant, magnitude 2.04. Is the brightest O-class star known. It is the closest binary star, composed of an O-class supergiant and a blue dwarf class O, magnitude 4. Dwarf was first discovered in 1998. Alright, next is, let's see, the Flame Nebula, NGC 2024, an emission nebula, magnitude 2, is illuminated by the light of Alnitak. The light emits an ultraviolet light into the nebula, knocking electrons away from the hydrogen gas clouds inside the nebula. The core of the nebula is the result of electrons and ionized hydrogen recombining. Nebula, known as Barnard 33, is a famous dark nebula and is located in the south of Alnitak, the brightest emission nebula, IC434. The Horsehead Nebula was discovered by American astronomer William Fleming in 1888. The nebula got the name Horsehead because of the shape formed by the dark dust clouds and gases. M78 is a reflective nebula, magnitude 8.3. The nebula surrounds two 10th magnitude stars, can be easily found in a small telescope. It also contains some 45 T-day type variables, young stars still in the process of formation. Alright, all of these links with each of these pictures is available on w5fc.org, and by extension the websites they are referenced to, so by all means go there. This is KE5ICX, I'm net control for tonight's Skynet. We'll now go to Brenda, WB5OZL, recent astronomical discoveries. We'll go with you and then I'll take additional check-ins after that. So Brenda, WB5OZL, go ahead.
Thanks, Tom. This is WB5OZL. The first article is entitled, Getting a Glimpse Inside the Moon. The research from University of Alberta physicists provides the first ever model of our moon's rotational dynamics, taking into consideration its solid inner core. The model helps to explain why, as seen from Earth, the moon appears to wobble on its axis. The answer, says physicist Matthew Dunbury, lies in the complex geometry of the moon's orbit, locked in what is known as a Cassini state. The moon goes around the Earth, and its orbit is inclined by about 5 degrees with respect to the normal, to the ecliptic plane, the plane about which the Earth rotates around the Sun. But just like the Earth's rotation axis is inclined by 23.5 degrees in space, the moon's rotation axis is also inclined by about 1.5 degrees, explains Dunbury, Associate Professor in the Department of Physics. over one orbit, it points in the same direction in space, which is the same plane as the normal to the orbit of the moon. Over one orbit. This type of lunar orbit was first observed by Giovanni Cassini more than 4 centuries ago. Since that time, elements of the Cassini state have been examined by scientists around the world. But what makes this model unique is accounting for a solid inner core at the center of the moon. Essentially, we took all forces into account and tried to predict the angle of the inner core of the moon, explained Dunbarry. The tilt angle predicted and know accurately the deep interior structure of the moon. However, we know it is not aligned with the mantle or the fluid core. We determined that the inner core is tilted as much as 17 degrees away from the mantle in one direction or 33 degrees away in the other. And if scientists can identify the angle of the inner core, they will be able to develop a more accurate picture of the interior of the moon. This is the first model of the rotational dynamics of the moon that fully takes into account the presence of a solid inner core, said Christopher Stice, graduate student who conducted the research under the supervision of Dunbarry. Understanding the composition of the moon's interior may provide insight into the events leading up to the formation of the moon and the early history of the Earth. The second article is entitled Planetary Astronomers Identify Cycle of Spectacular Disturbances at Jupiter's Equator. A regular pattern of unusual meteorological events at Jupiter's equator has been identified by planetary scientists at the University of Leicester. Jupiter's striped appearance of light zones and dark brown belts provides breathtaking views through amateur and professional telescopes alike. The Jupiter's stripes can change and shift over poorly understood timescales, sometimes expanding and contracting, sometimes fading away entirely. Using a large database of observations of Jupiter spanning more than 4 decades, scientists have been working to understand the forces shaping these gargantuan weather changes on the solar system's largest planet. In research recently published in Geophysical Research Letters, the team used data, telescopic infrared observations, to show evidence of unique events at Jupiter's equator when the usual thick white clouds appear to be completely missing. Lead author Dr. Arate Atuniano from the University of Leicester Department of Physics and Astronomy said, Jupiter's equator is normally completely clouded over, appearing dark in the infrared because those clouds appear in silhouette against Jupiter's warm internal glow. These thick clouds make the equator look white through a visible telescope. Co-author Dr. Lee Fletcher, also from the University of Leicester's Department of Physics and Astronomy, said, professional astronomers have been tracking Jupiter's infrared emission for decades, particularly using NASA's Infrared Telescope Facility on the top of Mauna Kea, Hawaii. Only by putting all these observations together from a wide variety of instruments over more than 3 Jupiter years, a year on Jupiter lasts 12 Earth years, do we begin to spot a pattern. Dr. Atuniano said, every 6 or 7 years we found examples of observations when the equatorial clouds had vanished completely, allowing us to see deeper into Jupiter's turning atmosphere. These cloud-clearing disturbances left the equator looking very bright in the infrared and dark brownish in visible light. These disturbances lasted for 12 to 18 months, and we saw spectacular examples in 1973, 79, 92, 99, and 2006. With this pattern, the researchers expected to see events in 1985 and 2013, but although the brownish equatorial color was apparent, the clouds didn't clear completely. Dr. Glenn Fortin, a senior research scientist at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, Pasadena, California, and one the people responsible for the enormous database of ground-based Jupiter observations is used in this study explained. As usual, Jupiter is reluctant to give up all its secrets at once. It seems that this 6-7 year pattern isn't perfect, and sometimes we don't see a complete clearing disturbance. None of these previous equatorial disturbances have been properly analyzed by a visiting spacecraft. Dr. Artuniano said, if we follow the pattern over the last 45 years, the really exciting result of this one is that we expect to see a new event very soon, perhaps as early as next year. Jupiter is currently close to conjunction, meaning that it's hiding away behind the sun and won't become visible to Earth-based observers for the next few months. There are already tantalizing hints that things are changing. Small breaks in Jupiter's equatorial cloud apparent in the latest images. The new study, funded by the European Research Council and NASA, could have some surprising implications for Juno's exploration of Jupiter. Juno has been orbiting Jupiter since July 2016, returning spectacular new insights into its deep atmosphere and magnetosphere. Dr. Ort said, peering beneath the clouds, Juno's microwave instrument revealed a deep column of ammonia gas rising at the equator and condensing to form those black clouds at the equator. We're excited to see whether that deep ammonia plume is about to change during the new equatorial disturbance event. The scientists suspect the accumulation of ammonia at the equator might help to explain the bizarre 6-7 year pattern of events. Dr. Artunianos added, these long-term observations are the key to unlocking the secrets of these slow weather patterns and climate variations on Jupiter and allow us to place the findings of NASA's Juno mission into the proper historical context. Okay, that's it. These are both from ScienceDaily.com. That's it. This is WB5OZL.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Brenda. This is KE5ICX. My name's Tom. I'm the control for tonight's Skynet. Let me go ahead and pause for additional check-ins. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come down and call us by name and where you're transmitting from.
So 5. Juliet, Delta Whiskey, John and Coppell.
So 5, Whiskey Tango Hotel, Williams and Irving.
This is Kilo India 5, Bravo November Papa, Luis in forward.
KI5 CEU, Sean in Denton.
November 5, Yankee, Echo, Oscar. Stephen, San Antonio.
Alright, very good. Let me get all those check-ins. I've got a couple on text. I got K5JDW, John and Capel, K5WTH, William and Irving, KI5BNP, Luis, Fort Worth, KI5CEU, Sean in Denton, N5YEO, Stephen, San Antonio. And then I got N5IMSJJ in Carrollton. You mentioned that you were here earlier and I didn't acknowledge. Any additional check-ins, please come out. Okay, let's move on to the next section of the net. We've got space exploration and space history. That would be Tony, NTDM. I have a feeling you got a bunch of stuff for us this evening. Go ahead, Tony.
Good evening, Tom. Well, not too much, but it is all good, exciting stuff. The first item is pretty exciting. I was very proud to celebrate the landing of the InSight lander on Mars, and it is beginning science operations. It has deployed its seismometer on Mars. Now, InSight is a relatively simple lander, and its landing site was intentionally picked to have the surface be as boring and flat and level as possible. So it is these instruments, the heat probe and the seismometer, that are the entire purpose of its journey. So seismometer deployment is as important as landing InSight on Mars, said the InSight principal investigator, Bruce Barrett, based at JPL. The seismometer is the highest priority instrument on InSight. We need it in order to complete about 3/4 of our science objectives, he said. The seismometer will allow scientists to peer deep into the Martian interior by studying ground motions, that is, Marsquakes. Each Marsquake acts as a kind of flashbulb that illuminates the structure of the planet's interior. By analyzing how seismic waves pass through the layers of the planet, scientists can deduce the depth and composition and temperature of these layers. This is the first step of its most important instrument deployment. Once they are sure it is in the right place and working well, they're going to lower a cover over the seismometer, known as the wind and thermal shield, to stabilize the temperature and acoustic environment. This thing is so sensitive that even the very faint noises from the Martian wind, less than 1% of the density of Earth's wind, will disrupt its readings. Assuming that there are no unexpected issues, the InSight team plans to deploy the heat probe onto the Martian surface in late January. Also in space news this week, we did have a landing. N5BB mentioned this during TechNet. Astronauts Alexander Gerst of the European Space Agency, NASA's Serena Unknown Chancellor, and Sergei Prokofiev of Roscosmos all landed safely in Kazakhstan. This was the crew brought to space by the Soyuz capsule MS-09. MS-09 was best known for its little air leak, the one with the drill marks around it. Don't worry, though. Soyuz capsule is composed of several parts. A service module, kind of analogous to the Apollo service module, a re-entry compartment, analogous to the Apollo command module, and an orbital compartment, a sort of living and working room in space for the housing of scientific experiments. The air leak was in the orbital module, which is not needed for a safe return. It is, in fact, jettisoned into space after each mission. That's, in fact, why they had to have a grueling spacewalk earlier this month to collect evidence from the outside of the orbital module, because that module, there's just no way to bring it back. It has no heat shielding. It burns up in the atmosphere after its use. And this is NT5T. I'm proud to contribute to Skynet. This week in space history has some pretty important milestones. On December 16th, 1965, my favorite constellation of 4 satellites received member Pioneer 6. Pioneer 6, as you might recall from the previous mentions, is part of the very first space weather observatory ever deployed. These were a set of 4 spinning satellites that operated for decades, well into the early 2000s. 2 out past Earth, 2 between the Sun and Earth, carefully checking the flow of ions from the Sun. Very important for learning to forecast space weather. On December 17th, 1981, yes, we blasted forward some in time, radio Sputniks, RS-3 through RS-8, were launched on a single rocket. These were probably the largest mass launch of amateur radio payloads ever. RS-3 and RS-4 were prototypes and did not contain transponders for general use. They were really just there to check the functions and provide a baseline for analyzing of other satellites, and Tom's got a good example there. All of these satellites used a common bus, just like Voyager 1 and 2 were based on the same spacecraft design. RS-3 through RS-8 used a Soviet communications satellite as their basic platform, and then they customized it for amateur radio purposes. So RS-3 and RS-4 were just a baseline. RS-5 and RS-7 contained transponders named robots. These were unique in the history of amateur radio satellites because they were CW-only transponders that you could converse with. You could send each robot a simple message, such as your call sign, and then it would answer back with your call sign and its own call sign in a serial number for the QSO. A really neat little CW satellite in space. On December 17th, 1903, we go a long way back from a CW satellite in space. This was not a space discovery or a space exploration feat, but it made everything else possible. On December 17th, 1903, 2 very serious-minded bicycle mechanics who had carefully done all the math of how lift and drag work and thrust, well, they took the first heavier-than-air flight in what was later known as Wright Flyer #1. This was Orville and Wilbur White at North Carolina. This crude and difficult-to-steer airplane was powered by a 12-horsepower engine, and after a simple coin toss, Wilbur Wright won the right to take the first powered-controlled heavier-than-air flight. Wilbur died of typhoid fever back in 1912, but Orville lived to see Chuck Yeager break the speed of sound in the Bell X-1. It is truly amazing how aviation progressed from utter fiction in the late 1800s, where H.G. Wells thought only Martians could understand it, to practical science in 1903, to a means of commerce and war in the 1940s. Now I'll jump forward to another milestone. On December 18th, 1958, the first and one of the world's heaviest communications satellites was launched. This was SCORE, signal communication by orbiting relay equipment. This was the world's first functional communications satellite. It did not just go beep like a Sputnik. And yes, Tom there on YouTube has a picture of the entire satellite. What you say? That looks like an Atlas ICBM. Yes. Fabricate a separate communications satellite. They launched an entire Atlas into orbit and welded parts of the communications satellite to the inside and outside of the Atlas. SCORE was the first working communications satellite, as I mentioned, and it incorporated both of the fundamental communications satellite technologies. It both had a transponder that could rebroadcast things sent to it in real time, and a store and forward system, a set of tape recorders, a pair, that could record up to 4 minutes of audio and then retransmit it automatically. The first tape recorder failed right after launch, but the second was used by no one less than President Dwight Eisenhower. He transmitted a presidential Christmas greeting to the Atlas, which was then rebroadcast on a loop to people all over the world. Now, few people could hear this message directly, but thanks to the help of amateur operators, it was able to be relayed to commercial television and radio stations all around the world. The Soviet Soviet Union may have launched the first satellites, but boy, that was a heavy one, and one of the first really genuinely functional satellites. But now let's talk about a quick Soviet space triumph from December 21st, 1966, Luna 13. Luna 13 was the third spacecraft to land successfully on the surface of the moon. It was preceded by Luna 9 and the American Surveyor 1. This is a pretty neat-looking satellite. In fact, if you know what Sputnik looks like, you might see some familiarity here with the four trailing antennas in the back and the spherical pressurized body. The satellite used a retro-rocket package, which it later jettisoned, to land very gently on the surface of the moon. It unfolded its solar panel petals as if they were flower petals and began transmitting signals back to Earth 4 minutes after landing. The spacecraft transmitted four 360-degree television panoramas of the lunar landscape. They were spaced over a period of days so that they could get different sun angles, some with the sun shining straight down to show the brightness of features, some with the sun shining from the side to show how tall the features were. Each of these transmitted panoramas took over 100 minutes to send back to Earth. There were also instruments to measure the stiffness of the soil and measure how the stiffness varied with depth as the spacecraft poked at it. There were measurements of radiation and cosmic rays. The satellite functioned almost at the end of the month on December 28, 1966. Finally, we have the biggest milestone of space exploration in December, the launch of Apollo 8 on December 21st, 1968. This is really worth looking up yourself. It was quite an adventurous feat. Because the lunar module was lagging behind as a component of the Apollo program, the managers decided to switch crews. The crew that would have been Apollo 8 for lunar module testing in Earth orbit was bumped back to Apollo 9, and the crew that would have been Apollo 9 was brought forward with 3 months less training to Apollo 8. Frank Borman, James Lovell, and William Anders had a lot of work to do to get ready for their mission, but they earned a unique honor. They became the first humans to travel beyond low Earth orbit, the first humans to see the Earth as a whole planet, and the first to enter the gravitational influence of another celestial body. They were also the first humans to orbit another celestial body, the first to see the far side of the moon with their own eyes, the first to see an Earthrise, and the first to broadcast a Christmas greeting from deep space. They flew on what was only the third of the Saturn V rocket, only the first crewed launch of the Saturn V, and the first human space flight from Kennedy Space Center, located adjacent to Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. Imagine if you had planned to go around the Earth in the space shuttle and they had told you only 3 months ahead of time that you were going to the moon instead. They had a lot of work to do. Apollo 8 took 68 hours, almost 3 full days, to travel the distance to the moon. They orbited the moon 10 times over the course of 20 hours, during which they made a Christmas Eve television broadcast in which they read the first 10 verses of the Book of Genesis. At the time, the broadcast was the most watched TV program ever. This is NC5TM, and now I'm going to on-key and see if my audio experiment here works. Let's see how it goes. It's now approaching lunar sunrise, and for all the people back on Earth, the crew of Apollo 8 has a message that we would like to send to you. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, and it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. And God says, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters. Let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning was the second day. Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And God saw that it was good. And from the crew of morning, we close with good night, good luck, a Merry Christmas, and God bless all of you on the good earth.
And thank you very much for listening, and a Merry Christmas to all of you here, NT5TM, back to net.
Very good. Thank you, Tony. Appreciate that great report this evening. This is KE5ICX and net control for tonight's Skynet. Doing additional check-ins, please come down with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from. Okay, hearing none. Let me go ahead and go to the next section of the net, which is the visible satellite passes over the next couple of days. We have a few here. Again, you can go to w5fc.org, find the links for tonight's Skynet. You'll get all this information, or you can go to heavens-above.com. They'll provide the same information. A few passes that are interesting. We have the International Space Station's finally made a reappearance. This one does, here in Dallas, has two passes, December 23rd. Let's see, that one is minus 3.8 magnitude at 6:53 a.m. Now the southwest reaches its highest point at 6:56 at 62 degrees and then falls at 6:59. On December 24th, we have an additional pass. This is minus 3.2 magnitude at 6:01 a.m. out of the south-southwest. Reaches its highest point at 6:04, then falls at 6:07. Highest point at 56 degrees, so we get what? About a 6-minute pass, not too shabby. Next up, the North Korean satellite. Yep, that thing is still up there. What, 3 years later? December 23rd has a pass. Pretty good, 68 degrees, 6.4 magnitude at 17:56. In the evening, local time reaches its highest point at 17:59 at 68 degrees, and then falls to east-northeast at 18:02 local time. On December 25th, the highest pass, 6.8 magnitude at 6:35 a.m., reaches its highest point at 6:39 at 75 degrees out of the east, then falls at 6:42 to the south that evening. So, what is that? 257-minute pass. There's also an additional pass. There's a few of these. 7.2 magnitude on December 26th at 18:15, reaches its highest point at 18:19 at 56 degrees out of the west, and falls at 18:22. And I'm going to read the last one here, December 28th. There's a couple more, but this is getting repetitious. December 29th, 7.1 magnitude, 6:30 a.m. Reaches its highest point at 6:34. It's 64 degrees out east, and it falls at 6:37, 48 into the south. So you get all this great information. This is not only for visible satellite passes, but you can also get information on amateur radio passes, including all of the longitude and latitude information that you might need. It's good stuff. Why? Well, if you'd like to make a contact using amateur satellites, this Heaven-Above website provides that information, and it does so accurately to your longitude and latitude. Just plug that stuff in, and then you'll be able to find the information without using an app. All you need is a website. And then it will remember you if you use cookies, and then you'll be able to go back to the site and it'll provide the same information exactly. In fact, all of the information that you find on the notes have to do from my location, yes, longitude and latitude for Louisville, Texas. But you can put your own information in. Not to say that my information is inaccurate. Probably work for you too. But if you live in Louisville, it really works well. This is KE5ICX. We're about to conclude tonight's Skynet. I'll go ahead and ask for additional check-ins before we move on to the next section of the net. If you'd like to join us, please come now with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Echo India Uniform, David, St. Paul, Texas.
I do have KG5EIU, David in St. Paul, VP for the Dallas Amateur Radio Club. Any additional check-ins? Okay, no problem. We do have additional time. We have astronomical Q&A, something you would like to ask about astronomical or space exploration. Please come now with your call sign, something you would like to ask. Please come now. Okay, hearing none. I'll go ahead and make a comment, something you might be interested in. I am super geeky when it comes to space exploration stuff, especially having to do with the Apollo space program that got us to the moon. Apollo 8 was featured this evening. There's a lot involved with getting to the moon, and it has to do with Earth rendezvous, or Earth orbit insertion, lunar orbit rendezvous, the lunar module. Some of the things that are available for the first time, probably in the last 5 years or so, have to do with the NASA reports. There is a thing called mission reports. What is that? Oh, this is the report that gives you all the nuts and bolts, things that happen on the flight. It even says, and it's cautioned by the fact that this is not something for public consumption, meaning simply they don't get it. But you and I do. So if you're interested in finding out how to do lunar orbit rendezvous, what happens with computers, what codes do you put in, like, I don't know, P71 for an abort back to the command module without crashing back on the moon, that sort of thing. Really cool stuff. These reports are available over on the archive site at NASA. Why do you care? Well, why not? Actually, there's some very interesting things that happen. When things go wrong, you can read about it and how they fixed it. How do you get off the moon, get off of after landing on the moon and get back into orbit when an abort system is going to say, oh, you messed up and may blow the spacecraft off to its side or cause the spacecraft to take off uncommanded? Those things actually appear in the reports, how to prevent those things from happening. So even though some missions seem to be really boring, how can going to the moon be boring? Well, they can be if everything goes right. What about if something could potentially go wrong? What about if something might not quite live up to snuff? What do you do? How do you make it happen? How do you get back home and keep everybody calm? Astronauts are calm, but the public may not be. That information is available in these mission reports. Want to know the mathematics that gets you into orbit and out of orbit? That stuff is there too. So if you're a mathematical whiz, you can check the math and make sure that it's correct. So the mission reports, though not recommended for public consumption, as they say, do provide all of that information as well as schematics. Problems such as, oh, I don't know, you return to Earth and one of the rockets, the RD-4 rockets that are used to move the spacecraft succinctly into re-entry, one of the darn things doesn't close on, what was it, 13. Find out why? You want to know why? Somebody soldered a wire in the wrong place and the darn thing didn't close up properly after it splashed down. Sound interesting? Mission reports. That's all you have to put in, missions reports. 2 words, followed by the mission, Apollo, pick your choice, and they're all there. All signed by James McDivitt. So, astronaut, I think I'm Apollo 10, 9, 10, 10, I think. Check there. You'll find all the interesting information. Trust me, if you start reading it, you're going to find it fascinating. Well, I did at least. Do we have any final check-ins before I close tonight's Skynet? Please come out.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Lima Kilo Golf.
I have KF5LKG. Can you get your name and location, please?
Hello, Tom. It's David. Southbound 35 coming out of Oklahoma. You've got me over here at Gainesville.
Welcome back. You got a good signal, by the way, and good to hear you. KF5LKG, somewhere on, I think, 35 headed south. If you're in Gainesville, you got a good signal. Okay, any final check-ins before I close it out? Please come in. I will not belabor the point. This is KE5ISX. We'll go ahead and close tonight's net. We had 22 check-ins, including myself, this evening. Not bad for a holiday. Participating on the air. Thanks to all who checked in. We hope you join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you like to try your hand at this, if you like net controls or contributions, send an email to at w5fc.org. You won't regret it. It's fun. You can follow topics and discussion about this net, astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio-video feeds, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. Till next Saturday night, this is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray Tom, and I'll be closing that at 22:27 local time, and returning the computer to normal use. And wishing you all a Merry Christmas, all of you on the good earth. I think I'm here. Yeah, I'm here too. 7-3, everybody, and don't forget, coming up is the Afterglow Movie Net. We'll be discussing The Man Who Fell to Earth, which has a cameo with Jim Lovell, who was on Apollo 8 and circuited the moon on Apollo 8. He was in the movie, so him too. We'll be back in about 5 minutes to talk about Man Who Fell to Earth. 7-3, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. This is KE5ICX. I'm good for now.
Completely operational, and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow Movie Net.
Does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the afterglow now? This is WB5OZL. My name's Brenda. I'm in DeSoto. And every Saturday night at about this time, we have a movie discussion night, which we call Afterglow. And the movie tonight is going to be The Man Who Fell from Earth. To Earth, sorry. So, as usual, I'd like to call on Tom, KE5ICX, to give us a synopsis of the movie. Can you do that, Tom?
Oh, sure, I'll be happy to. This is KE5ICX, and I have exhaustively researched this movie, which means I went to Wiki and found it, and this is what they say. Man Who Fell to Earth is from 1976. I thought it was 75, but I missed a year somewhere in time travel. British science fiction film directed by Nicholas Roach and written by Paul Myersberg, based on Walter Tevis' 1963 novel of the same name about an extraterrestrial who crash lands on Earth seeking a way to ship water to his home planet, which is suffering from a severe drought. The film retains a following for its use of surreal imagery and the performance of David Bowie in his first starring film. As an alien, Thomas Jerome Newton. The film also stars Candy Clark, Buck Henry, and Hollywood veteran Rip Torn. The same novel was later remade into a less successful 1987 television adaptation. So here's the plot. By the way, it says, despite a mixed critical response upon release, the film is now considered an important work of science fiction cinema and one of the best films of Roach's career. Well, I'm not going to disagree. It says Thomas Jerome Newton is a humanoid alien who comes to Earth from a distant planet on a mission to take water back to his home planet, which is experiencing a catastrophic drought. Throughout the film are brief sequences of his wife and child back on his home planet, suffering, perhaps dying. Newton uses advanced technology of his home planet to patent many inventions on Earth and acquires tremendous wealth as the head of a technology-based conglomerate, World Enterprises Corporation, headed by the leading patent attorney, Oliver Farnsworth. His wealth is needed to construct a space vehicle with the intention of shipping water back to his home planet. While revisiting New Mexico, he meets Mary Lou, a lonely, unloved, simple girl who works as a maid, bellhop, and elevator operator in a small town. He tells her he is English. Mary Lou introduces Newton to many customs of Earth, including church-going, alcohol, and sex. They all go together, right? She and Newton live together in a house Newton has built close to where he first landed in New Mexico. Meanwhile, Dr. Nathan Bryce, a former womanizer and college professor, he's played by Rip Torn, in case you wondered, has landed a job as a fuel technician with World Enterprises, who becomes Newton's confidant. Bryce senses Newton's alienness and arranges a meeting with Newton at his home, where he is hidden a special X-ray camera, where he steals a picture of Newton with the camera and it reveals Newton's alien physiology. Newton's appetite for alcohol and television, he watches multiple televisions at once. Who doesn't? Becomes crippling, and he and Mary Lou fight. Realizing that Bryce has learned his secret, Newton reveals his alien form to Mary Lou, and her resulting reaction is one of pure shock and horror. He leaves her. Newton completes the spaceship and attempts to take it on a maiden voyage amid intense press exposure. However, just before scheduled takeoff, he is seized and detained, apparently by the government and a rival company. His business partner, Farnsworth, is murdered. The government, which has apparently been told by Bryce that Newton is an alien, holds him captive in a locked apartment constructed deep within the hotel. During his stay, they keep him sedated with alcohol, which he has become addicted, and continue to subject him to rigorous medical tests, notably one involving X-ray, which causes the contact lenses he wears as part of his human disguise to permanently affix themselves to his eyes. Toward the end of his years of captivity, he is visited again by Mary Lou, who is now much older and who looks to have been ravaged by alcohol and time. They have mock, violent, playful sex that involves firing a gun with blanks and afterwards occupy their time drinking and playing table tennis. Mary Lou declares that she no longer loves him, while he says he doesn't love her either. She leaves him. Eventually, Newton discovers that his prison, in quotes, now derelict, is unlocked, and he leaves. Unable to return home and broken and alcoholic, Newton creates a recording with alien languages, which he hopes will be broadcast via radio to his home planet. Bryce, who has since married Mary Lou, buys a copy of the album and meets Newton at an outside restaurant in town. Newton is still rich and young-looking despite the passage of many years. However, Newton has also fallen into depression and alcoholism, and the film ends with an inebriated Newton passing out in his cafe chair. And they all live happily after. And that's it for me. Back to net control. This is KE5ICX.
Alrighty, yes, what have you filmed? There's always been a disagreement on how to pronounce the star's name, so let's look up on the internet, and they say it is David Bowie. He was originally named David Jones, but he took the name of Jim Bowie, the hero from the Alamo, because he liked the knife, which he said cut both ways. Actually, that's not true. The knife we all think of as the Bowie knife is a fabrication of Hollywood. We don't know what the original Bowie knife looked like, but it didn't have that notch cut up the top. Anyway, that's my history geekiness. Okay, let's have check-ins, channel check-ins first. Tell me whether or not you saw the movie. Please come now.
Golf 5 Papa is Mike and Richardson, and I saw the movie.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony, and Aaron and I did see the movie. Whiskey 5, Echo Bravo Bravo, David in Dallas. Yes, I saw the movie.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Tango, Sierra Kilo, Burl in Dallas, I did see the movie.
November 5, Bravo Bravo, Bill in Irving. Yes, I did see the movie.
Charlie 5, Oscar Zulu Tango, Carolyn and Louisville, I did not see the movie.
Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-ray, Tom Louisville. Yeah, I saw it.
KG5P Mike, who did see the movie, and T5TM Tony, yes. W5EBB David did see the movie. KF5TSK Burl, yes. N5BB Bill, yes. KC5OZT Carolyn, no, did not see the movie. KE5ICX Tom, yes, did see the movie. Okay, let's pick up Echo Link. Please go now.
KI5CEU, Sean, I have not seen the movie.
Okay, Sean, I got KI5 and didn't get the rest. Could you please come back with that?
Sorry, that's Kilo India 5, Charlie Echo Uniform.
The movie, correct?
KF5LKG.
Okay, that last call sign I didn't get, and nor did I get a. Would you please come back and do it a little slowly?
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Lima Kilo Golf.
And your name, please?
My name is David, and I was in the movie.
For real, KF5LKG, David. Well, we look forward to hearing about that. We'll check in.
KI5CPN, did not see the movie.
Okay, KI5CPN, your name, please?
Michael from South Grand Prairie.
Okay, anybody else?
This is Kilo Call 5, Whiskey Victor Lima. James, did not see the movie.
KG5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James, did not see the movie. Okay, anybody else? Okay, I guess we'll start with our usual spot, talking about the plot. So let's get started. KG5P, Mike, what did you think about the plot?
Okay, good evening, Brenda and the group, KG5P. Well, as would have been expected, I had a hard time trying to figure out what was going on. Tom cleared some things up. There's some other resources out on the internet explaining it. I knew vaguely what it was, but that was about it. And as a result, I kind of lost interest in parts, so my attention kind of drifted. So I probably missed things that it would have made more sense if I'd have picked up on them. The writer of the book, Walter Tevis, I tried to find his book in the public library here, but we didn't have it in Richardson. It's available on Amazon, so I might read it. One of the comments I read was that if you like the movie, if you like the book, you'd love the movie, or if you love the book, you'd like the movie, or something like that. So you really need to read the book, I guess, to appreciate it fully. I can't really say a whole lot about the plot, except it was convoluted and you know, it's almost like 2001. You know what's going on here half the time. I did like some of the photography and the cinematography they did, which had nothing to do with the plot. But I'll just have to go back and read the book. I can't really comment much more about that. Back to that KG5P.
Okay, NT5TM Tony, give us your opinion on the plot.
Tedious, very tedious, full of digressions, and it leaves too many things out. To take this one example, the alien is supposed to have brought many terrible, disruptive innovations back to Earth that wreck the economy and motivate the government to want to do him in, his competitors to want to kill him. But the only innovation we ever see that he's brought back to Earth is instant camera film that comes in rolls instead of single sheets. Well, at least in medium format, that innovation dates to the 60s. It wasn't new. I used it in lab equipment in school. It's old. The construction of this plot seems to focus on neither showing nor showing, but simply leaving things out and engaging in random digressions. A college professor has a checkered background, so we have to see an endless and tedious sex scene between him and one of his students. Later in the movie, we see the man from another world, you know, David Bowie's character, having some bizarre sex scene that involves very unsafe handling of a pistol loaded with blanks. I was very agitated by the unsafety of that. Blanks are actually quite dangerous. And it just goes on forever. It never seems to end. So many scenes in this movie are longer than they need to be. It drags. The plot is hard to figure out apart because it's so slow and there's so much digression. Because the plot is really pretty simple. Alien from outer space comes to Earth on an important mission, saves his family or his world by bringing it water. And this alien is undone, not by atomic weapons or Machiavellian plots, but by the banality of evil. A few psychiatrists, a couple of murders, a lot of gin, and some television. That's all it took. No atomic bombs. And that could be something pretty deep that good writers could do a lot with, because that's a pretty profound statement about the destructiveness of modern society. Did the movie do it well? No, it tried to destroy us, the watchers, by boring us to death or driving us to alcoholism by being so bleeping boring. NT5TM.
Okay, W5EBB, David, go ahead.
Well, I have to be a little bit of a contrarian and say that I really enjoyed this movie. And it maintained my interest throughout. The plot was, a little bit vague about, exactly how he got to Earth, and even the title, The Man Who Fell to Earth, kind of implies he was living above the Earth or in some plane, maybe a different dimension, and it wasn't really clear that it was a distant planet. In fact, in some of the scenes, it looks like he literally fell, and falling also implies a metaphorical kind of a context as well. He basically fell from grace in a way, perhaps, in a metaphysical sense. He may have fallen from a higher ascension level, of existence, and when he fell to Earth, initially he was a pure kind of a character, only drank water. He was very sensitive to external stimuli, changes in acceleration, like on the elevator, and he was conservative in his externalization or his integration with society, and didn't want to, said he had a wife, and so he wasn't going to explore any kind of a sexual activity with Mary Lou. But then things change, and so we see him falling, in terms of his character and his sense of morality, and all of his objectives of trying to get back kind of come undone in the process, and in the last part of the movie, it's basically the unhappy happy hour as he, becomes a more sinful person who's just doing the things that all the other people do on Earth. And culturally, there's a culture shock there, and he succumbs to it, and that's ultimately his undoing. And so from a sort of a metaphysical sense, especially in the very last scene where he's just bowing his head down, it's like he has just, admitted to the fact that he's been consumed by the wiles and temptations of the world, and he's lost touch with the higher level of himself that he was before he got to Earth. W5EBB.
Okay, KF5TSK Ball, go ahead.
It's KF5TSK. Well, I would say the movie was really too long. It was kind of a rambling. I viewed the trailer, and it was like it was the same scenes over and over. Someone falling into the water. It was a strange love with Mary Lou, but you kind of expected that the outcome would be that they would have a child, and it's like the movie lasted too long. You kept wondering, where is the end? Where's the exit? K5TSK back to that.
Okay, N5BB Bill, go ahead.
Thanks, Brenda. This is N5BB. I agree with some of what David there said about him falling. And Burl there, it didn't show his spacecraft leaving. Essentially, it shows a big splash in the water, and then it showed him, but the film purposely didn't try to show those details. That wasn't the kind of film it was. It's mostly allegory, and it's about the 1970s, and allegory, I think, on human existence. And you'll notice the focus of the film is really alcohol and television in equal amounts. I kind of view it as that kind of film. There was a story about an alien that came here to get water to take back, but it didn't really focus on that. That wasn't the intent of the film. They talk about how he was going to get the water back. No. How much water was he going to have to take back? How in the world could you build a big enough spacecraft? Well, that wasn't the focus of the film. The people that made the film didn't care about that. I think what they cared about was the frailties of humans. That's all I got for now. Inside BB.
Okay, KC5 OZT Carolyn. I know you didn't see it, but do you have any comments?
No, since I didn't see it, I can't really comment. KC5 OZT.
All right, K5 ICX Tom, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. Having grown up, particularly during the 1970s, experienced the 1960s, I have, I guess, a little bit of a different take on all of this. First off, I see the film as less of a science fiction film, more of a personal film. I'm not going to elevate it to some vast thing like possibly, I don't know, reviewers might, but I'm not going to devalue it either. I think the film had a lot to say. As far as people, first off, let me say this. The story isn't this grand science fiction thing. We've got that. This is a personal story, and I think that David Bowie, did I get it right, Bowie? Bowie, I'll get it right. David Bowie did an excellent job of playing that alien person detached from everything. The only people we see is his family itself. That's it. He may be the only guy. And he is trying to send water back. Now, technically, that doesn't make sense, but that's okay. He's trying to save his family. And I think that's it. I think his family are the only people left. That's kind of what I get from the metaphorical part of this. So he starts out with that ambition, and he fails. And I think that it's more of a story about all of us, that we fail in different ways. It's easy to make a story about people succeeding and being great and doing wonderful things, and we aren't the people. We are people who end up living our lives and trying to do the best we can, but we don't become these massive, successful people. And there's an irony in this, in that he is successful, but he eschews it. He says, no, that's not the important part, until it does become the important part. And in the end, he fails his family, and that's sad, but we kind of all do that in a certain sort of way. I mean, this thing struck me in a different way than I expected. I saw this thing years ago, but I didn't get it because I wasn't paying attention to the darn thing. And when you pay attention to the darn thing, it's still hard to follow. But in the end, I think that the story is a good story. It tells us something about ourselves, tells us something about loneliness. It tells us about self-indulgence. It tells us about our feelings and how we can be conflicted. And then in the end, all the booze, all the sex, all that stuff became overwhelming. Running the business became overwhelming. It all ended up just collapsing in and of itself. His best laid intentions were lost in the end. Is that possible? You bet. And then one last comment. He goes to this little backwater town in New Mexico and checks into a hotel of somewhat dubious quality and ends up by himself. I've done that a zillion times. I get it. Of course, hotels have gotten better over the last few years, but in the end, it's the same damn thing. Where am I? Why am I here? What am I doing? And your objectiveness goes right down the tubes. It just does, because your surroundings are just so alien that you're not quite sure exactly what you're dealing with. I could write a book about that because I've done enough of it. So that part, to me, really resonated in so many ways. I'm going to stop now because I think this movie kind of hit me a little deeper than other films we've done in the past. KE5ICX.
Okay, KI5CEU, Sean, did not see the movie, but do you have any comments?
No, I don't have any comments since I haven't seen the movie. Sounds like something I want to watch, though. Sounds pretty good.
LKG David, you saw the movie. What did you think of the plot? maybe David's not with us. KI5CPN, Michael, you didn't see the movie. Do you have any comments? And KG5WVL, James, didn't see the movie, but do you have comments?
Well, on the movie, the only thing I have comments is after reading some of the reviews, the tomato meter on the level was 82%, and the audience score was 69. So this movie must have been fairly likable. But since I didn't see the movie, I couldn't tell you about any of the plot. But I probably would have seen it with this level of ratings. KG5WVL, back to net.
Okay, all right, it's my turn. I found this movie very Kafka-esque, but then I like Kafka. Not that it's fun, but you learn a lot about yourself and other human beings. I did like the movie, but I found it very uncomfortable in many places. And of course it's allegorical. As far as science fiction, it falls flat. That was just kind of a construct they had to build a story around, and they didn't even bother with the fact that it made no sense at all, and they didn't even try to explain anything, but they were trying. It's just the platform on which to make this movie. The movie was very allegorical and very much about the human condition, about all of us, and you know, one worldview is we all suffer and then we die. So there are always excesses, way too many TVs, way too much alcohol, way too much sex, way too much money, and he's completely, well not completely, but somewhat defined by all the excess in his life. It doesn't serve him well, and you know, in the end he loses everything, and he's unhappy, and he hasn't found any meaning or had any success, and it's really kind of sad. And way too much talk from that silly woman. I would probably strangle somebody like that if I had to live with her. She stammered on and on and on and on about nothing, and you know, he had to be pretty intelligent, but why he would put up with her and live with her and spend all day with her is really beyond me. But I think that's, you know, part of the whole picture that we have here. All right, let's start at the top again, and let's talk about characters. KG5P, go ahead, Mike.
Okay, well, I don't have a whole bunch about the characters either. What a great bunch of comments, I'll tell you. Very astute comments from everybody. I thought it was cast pretty well. A couple of things. Candy Clark, she also played the other planet wife. Well, what I'm going to do is go through some of the things that I found were interesting. The music was by John Phillips, who is, you know, the old Mamas and Papas, John Phillips. The screenplay was by a guy named Paul Myersberg, and he also wrote the screenplay for a movie called Nightfall. Now, if you're familiar with Isaac Asimov, Nightfall is probably one of the best short stories ever written. And Isaac Asimov actually rewrote the short story into a book-length novel. But Paul Myersberg made a movie out of Nightfall, which was, some people say it's the worst movie ever made. There's a number of movies that are considered the worst movie ever made, but that was one of them. It's one of those where if you saw it in the theater, half the audience would get up and leave after 20 minutes. Walter Tevis, who wrote the book, he also wrote the Color of Money and The Hustler, those two movies with Paul Newman, as you recall. A couple other things in the trivia part that I guess when I got bored with the movie, when my attention started wandering, I would go look at the trivia, and one of the things I read about David Bowie was, of course, he was primarily a singer or a musician, and he played 14 different musical instruments. I think one of the people they were going to cast in the Newton role was Robert Redford, and the part played by Rip Torn. Well, originally this was also supposed to be Peter O'Toole was supposed to have been in it. James Mason was considered for the part that was later taken by Buck Henry, and James Coburn was originally considered playing Bryce, which was the Rip Torn character. But James Coburn was considered, they couldn't afford him because he was too much of a name actor. So this thing is full of all kinds of little bits of trivia that you might want to look on IMDb. I find this stuff fascinating personally. David Bowie, or Bowie, or however you pronounce it, his real name, or his name he was born with, was David Jones, except he changed to David Bowie because there was another Davy Jones, who was in the Monkees back around that time period. He didn't want to be confused with the Davy Jones of the Monkees. So I guess the most important of this whole movie that I found was the trivia. So back to that, KG5P.
All right. NT5TM, Tony, go ahead.
Well, first I'll make a couple of quick responses and then talk about characters. Brenda and Tom, I have relayed your comments to Aaron, and even for my part, I can kind of see what you're getting at. We both can, but that is the Kafkaesque of it is weakened, and the general statement about the human condition is weakened when it's incomprehensible or when it's very boring. The digressions in the plot make it very hard to relate to. And for my part, I can't be made uncomfortable by characters I simply don't care about. If they'd all been run over by a bus, well, I'll go do something else. On the upside of characters, Aaron really was impressed by the work of David Bowie. She felt he had a constant, quiet intensity that was very helpful. I often found him to be projecting more desperation than intent, but that is, a difference of degree rather than kind. He was certainly very alien. His character was generally very effective in tension-getting. A lot of the character development was very heavy-handed and annoying. During some of the early sections in the movie between a professor and a student, they were intercut with something like some sort of very stereotypical, some sort of very heavy-handed and theatrical Japanese theater, and that seemed really kind of crude. My place in the movie when Betty Lou is going in to visit the alien in his hotel prison as the hotel falls into decrepitude, it's intercut with scenes from The Third Man, which is a really excellent movie, one of my favorites. I love it. But comparing, in case you don't understand what she's doing, let's show you some scenes from The Third Man to give you some characters to compare them to. It was heavy-handed and crude and annoying and kept making me think about how the movie should have been shorter. So I'm going to steal a phrase from Aaron here. The movie really did have some big things it could have said. It was a big swing. It was swinging for the fences. It was trying to hit a home run. But especially in this matter of characters, it was a swing and a miss. And yeah, hold on. Yeah, it was a swing and a miss with rambling digressions and needless backstory and heavy-handed tactics and character development. She did point out that Betty Lou was interesting in a meta sense, that we wondered why this interesting David Bowie character was interested in Betty Lou in the first place. But a swing and a miss, NT5TM.
Okay, so when I say it may be uncomfortable, it's because there's so much of it is cringeworthy, and you almost can't watch it because it's just disturbing. So I didn't really relate to any of the characters particularly, but I think that's perhaps what they were after. Okay, yes, W5EBD David, go ahead.
Some others have mentioned tie-ins to other stories or movies that are kind of related to this plot, and some that I've seen recently or books that I've read recently definitely have similarities. The movie Midnight Special, if you have not seen that, is a very good movie, and it's basically about a child named Lucas who has special abilities, telekinetic, and he at home is actually a city that's invisible to people from Earth, that is built on top of the Earth. And anyway, it's a good movie, and it sort of has that and kind of ties in. Books that I've read recently, The Angels Fall, which is very similar to this title, is about angels who've been excommunicated from heaven, and they have been tired of serving in heaven, so now they rule on Earth ruthlessly against the humans. And they have, of course, special powers, and the whole falling sort of motif is similar in that way. Another book called Breakthrough, which is a contemporary book. It's one of these Amazon Kindle free books. I wouldn't recommend either one of those books, by the way, but the plot line of that was that there were aliens who were visiting Earth who needed water for their planet. And we were just sort of, callous about our ecology and climate, and so they felt no remorse in wanting to take some of our water, and they would do it through a Stargate-like portal that was in the ocean. And so I wouldn't say it was plagiarized, but it was very closely copied. Now, as for the characters, I'll just speak generally about David's character. I think he was exceptional as a first dramatic role as a traveler. He was very intuitive and empathic, but not completely dissociated from society. Yet he still remained sort of tangential to most people and independent, and in a way that seems almost autobiographical as to the strange bird that David Bowie actually was in person. ecstasy and sex response and sensory overload was definitely over the top. But it did contribute, I think, to the notion that his identity, which he kept, derived from within, became something that was derived from without. External stimulation began to become his identity, which kind of led to his downfall. Now, one other thing about David Bowie, just I'm not a fan, but I have seen some of his interviews. And there's one real good one that's from 1983 with TV VJ Mark Goodman, and they're talking about why they don't play more black music videos, and he puts Goodman on the spot to answer that in a very uncomfortable way. And Bowie has an intuitive way of turning an interviewer into an interviewee, thereby eliciting perhaps more information in a two-way exchange and discussion, and turns it into a social debate rather than just a single-sided question-answer. And so he had a very insightful state of mind, and he was an interesting character in real life too. 75 EBB.
Yeah, I read up on him. He is definitely was a fascinating person, many faceted. Okay, Bo, KF5 TSK, go ahead.
This is KF5 TSK. I would say that Newt reminds me a lot of Life Hughes. He was, great with technical items and didn't really want to be around people, which was, I guess, who Newton was. I really what I'd like to see is some kind of build-up of Newton on this planet, seeing TV and what they were doing for water, or, just more complete of what was going on. So I looked at Nathan Bryce, Womanizer, and I was like, well, what do they have to do with the whole movie? It was like, yeah, that was something in his life, but did it really mean anything? Can't find TSK back to that.
Okay, N5BB, Bill, go ahead.
Yes, this is N5BB. Well, excuse me. As unfortunately said before with some other things reviewed, I think we need to remember the time this was filmed in. This movie came out the year after Richard Nixon had resigned from office. And so politically things are kind of in a turmoil in the U.S. and some other countries. And the space program was also ending in the U.S. About right before this, actually. So that kind of the place in space and time this was filmed. It's a very 70s film if you look at it. Cars, TV, all that. The look of the film is so 70s. It was, as far as the characterization goes, I thought David Bowie did a good job. I think it was cast very appropriately. I think Henry was very interesting Oliver Farnsworth. And at one point, they were kind of talking about the Newton character, David Bowie, as being a freak. taking his incredibly thick glasses kind of off, and at that point he kind of looked like a freak nearly. But I think that, to me, the characterization and the lessons the movie was trying to say, was trying to give us, were actually in Candy Clark, that's the Mary Lou character, and Rip Torn, the Nathan Bryce character. They're the only characters that age during the movie. They age greatly. They did a great job showing them at a much older age. Rip Torn with his heavy beard, much older looking, and Candy Clark was really made up with makeup to look much, much older. And so I think really, if you look at what they did, how they acted, that was kind of what the movie was trying to tell us. The Rip Torn character essentially gave away the secret of Newton, and was pretty despicable. And I think Candy Clark and Mary Lou did a great job in playing that character. I mean, she may be despicable and hard to look at, but that's the whole point. The movie was trying to show Earthlings as pretty despicable characters. And here is this perfect alien coming in from the outside and having to put up with all these despicable humans. You want to think about it, that's kind of the main plot of the movie and the characterization of it. Bowie is this semi-perfect alien, and all the humans, pretty disgusting. All of them, every single one of them, in one way or another. That's all I got. In Fat BB.
Well, yeah, that was my point. The Candy Clark's character was excessive and annoying, and stuff a person we all have to deal with. How that whole world. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Brenda. This is KE5ICX. The characterizations, the people that were involved, their archetypes, all of them fit into certain categories, I think. First off, the Newton character, of course, is this alien coming to Earth, pure, and with good intentions, and then ends up being, like everybody else. And I think his transformation through the whole process, he goes from, hey, drink water. I want water, which is a metaphor, a direct thing having to do with, I want water. That's what he says at the very beginning. At the end, he wants, was it vodka? And the spaceship blows up, and that's it, His indifference ends up with his family dying, which is the next scene that you see. Was that the intent? No. Over the process of the story and the everything that's going on, and diversion, television, alcohol, all of that plays into it. Owning a business is a part of it. I think that's probably one of the things, too, that really plays seriously into it, his fall. The man who fell to Earth. That makes perfect sense in this story. And I think that when you watch it, and you think about it, it is, as I mentioned earlier, is kind of what we all could potentially fall into. And I don't think it's a to the allures of life and the distractions that come about, whether it be on a phone in a limousine or whether it be, something going on another planet. The whole point of the thing is that there are distractions, and how far do you go and how close do you maintain your guiding force. And the characters here, one of the things is with Newton tries to be very Vulcan. He tries to be very straightforward, and then in the end he can't be, and then he lets his emotions run away with unsafe firearms, and what happens? His family dies on the other planet. It's a tough thing, because I think this is what we all deal with on a day-to-day basis. That's why I have kind of a less, critical view of this film. It's too damn long. I'll agree with everybody on that one. Take 20 minutes out of the film. But the establishing pieces that go with that is just like what you get with Stanley Kubrick. Let me reset. Sometimes in a movie, you have to allow time for the audience to think about what's going on. What's happening here? What are the characters thinking? What are they doing? And especially now, where movies have a tendency to go so darn fast that you don't have enough to really think through what's going on, it becomes this other thing, and I won't go screaming and ranting about that. This film actually allowed you time to think about what was going on, what the characters were doing, and how they interacted. Sometimes you got to slow it down and allow people to think through the situations. And I think they did this with the film. Is it too long? Yeah. Is it, are other films not long enough? Yeah. So, I don't know. It's kind of hard to really situate yourself into what is the prime spot. What makes a movie spectacular? What makes it good? What makes it bad? Let me say this. 2001: A Space Odyssey with Stanley Kubrick. This film was panned incredibly, and yet it is now considered a classic. Why? Because I think some of the factors I was talking about. It played out well enough and made sense in the end. You had to be contemplative. It was panned originally. This film didn't get that kind of response, but at the same time plays out similarly. Could it have been stronger? Yeah, probably. Could it have been somehow more poignant? Probably. Does it make an impact? Yeah, most definitely. KE5ICX.
Okay. Well, KI5CEU didn't come back last time. Are you back with us? Okay, KF5LKG David, are you with us? KI5CPN. Michael, are you there? KG5WVL James, are you with us?
JDW, John and Coppell.
Okay, KD5, JDW, John, welcome to bed. Did you see the movie?
Hey, Brenda, yeah, it's K5 JDW. I saw it a long time ago. I need a refresher, though. At the time, I hardly understood what it meant. I was very aware at the time that Bowie was known for being experimental in all of his medias, and this is probably a really good example. All I remember about the movie is it seemed to throw a bunch of weird little notions at me that kind of make you think about things. Maybe that was his intent, I don't know. But basically, that's all I remember. It's been too long ago. I'll have to watch it again. And that's all I got. K5 JW.
Okay. Well, so far as characterization goes, I think it was really excellently cast. In many cases, I just can't imagine anybody else in these roles. And, you know, it's a fine line when you're doing something extreme that it doesn't get out of hand. And boy, you really run the risk of ruining everything by overplaying it. Oh, I lost my train of thought. Well, I guess I'll have to pick it up later. I'm sorry. But it was, yeah, the people were physically attractive. They're all people that have charisma. Most of them are well-known actors, and I think that helped a lot. Well, my point was about the editing. You know, is it maybe too long or too short? I think the hardest job in the world has got to be a film editor, because you see it so many times that you know it's not fresh, and it's got to be really hard to know how much is too much or not enough and all that. So it's, you know, what we see is not what they see, and so anyway, that's my part, my bit. Okay, let's talk about special effects. We'll start with Mike, KG5P. Go ahead.
Okay, it's KG5P. I didn't really see really much in the way of special effects. They didn't really have to, I don't think. Any effects like he was on his home planet were pretty generic, nothing spectacular. This was not a special effects movie. I think most of you talked about it being kind of an allegory, had it right. Yeah, I didn't even think of special effects. They just weren't there. So, don't have anything else to say. Back to that KG5P.
Okay, Tony, NT5TM.
Thank you. I'd like to, thank Tom and the group for, we've got to at least, Brenda, you and Tom in particular have been eloquent in your explication of why this film might deserve some more serious consideration. So although I am picking on it a lot, I do feel glad that we've had a serious film that we can talk about tonight. That's been pretty interesting. I don't have a lot to say about special effects as such. Aaron had a comment about the camera work, though. That, particularly in the first part of the movie, it almost felt as if it were going through a checklist, like a student assignment sheet of, here are the 5 experimental trendy camera techniques you're going to have to use in your next student film project. She commented on a point of view shot where we see somebody drop their keys on a table, the camera moving from their point of view. We kind of got used to it as the film went on, but yes, I guess it was the 70s. So it felt like they were going through this checklist of trendy 70s camera techniques. did eventually slacken off more, she adds, but none of those experiments really particularly seemed to add anything. And we were glad that either we got used to it or they did less of them as time went on. So I'm getting pretty sleepy. I'm impressed that Brenda, you and Tom are as coherent as you are, because I'm having a very hard time getting my coherency. But thank you for everyone for bringing these serious comments, because it's as much as I found it tedious and problematic, it is a movie that is pretty worthy of discussion, so it's been great to talk about it. NT5PM.
Yeah, I agree. Just some real meat on the bones, like last week, where it was just a little superficial walk through the solar system and didn't have any substance or characterization or anything really much to talk about other than how many rules of science they broke. Okay, let's see, where are we? 35 EBD. David, go ahead.
Well, the special effects were, I think, more of just showing a incongruity, I guess, between the world that he was from and to show how different it is, how aesthetic it is, and how kind of barren it is. And the characters and just the costumes, they're struggling. You can tell they had their little backpacks. I don't know if that was a water pack or what, but that was the main special effect, I think, just in the setting. And but it was kind of obscure exactly what that vehicle was that was on that monorail. And maybe that was sort of a Buckaroo Banzai eighth dimension sort of a transport. It just had to accelerate. Who knows? But a lot of the visuals were just sort of they were not real. They didn't elucidate any particular meaning. It was more like a sense or a feeling, like when he bursts out of the water and the flashes of light and the falling from the sky. It leaves a lot to the imagination. So they didn't get real explicit, I guess, in their special effects. Now, it's not a special effect, but I think that the new character probably had powers that he kept mostly in restraint, telepathic, able to induce visions and intuit what others were thinking. You recall there was one scene where Dr. Bryce was on the fishing pier and he was supposed to see David the next day, or Newton the next day, and Dr. Bryce sees a vision of Newton that's projected at the end, saying, don't be so suspicious. And Newton knew that he had been X-rayed when he was sitting in Dr. Bryce's living room, but he didn't let on until later. And one other thing, right at the beginning of the movie, after the one possession he had was his ring, and the seller offered him $20, but then we see he ends up with a wad of $100 bills. So did he get in her mind and say, hey, this is actually worth a lot more, this is what I want from it? And he probably could have been more aggressive in dealing with people and really press aggressively to meet his urgent timeline for his spaceship, but he didn't. And I think it was when he began to realize hope was lost and he wouldn't be able to return home, or that his family would still be living. He first lashes out outwardly, but then he sort of turns that inwardly, and it becomes sort of self-destructive from his inability to cope. He represented an incongruity with the social ecology, as one of the government officials or competitive companies said. But that social ecology disparity was bidirectional. As Newton said, if they had found themselves on his world, they probably wouldn't have been treated any better. 35 EBB.
Okay, Burroughs, KM5 TSK.
KM5 TSK. Well, I wasn't really that impressed with the, what they did. I thought it was rather strange that he came to Earth on a monorail, and it appeared that he wanted to, I guess, return with a, looked like a magnetic type spaceship, but he was also pursuing a guy that was a fuel specialist, and it's like, well, how was he going to go back? You know, a fuel spaceship, magnetic, or is there a way to connect to the monorail? I didn't see anything that was, you know, really scientific or, you know, his camera looked to be, you know, very futuristic, I guess in function, but, you know, the size of it and the metallic outside of it would have been something that would have really been maybe something that, you know, the world wouldn't want. You know, I can look at cell phones and iPods and, you know, they're a lot easier to carry, and it's like, you know, he didn't have the greatest techniques, and, you know, also that, you know, he was so interested in TV, but didn't really show that much on this planet, so I'm thinking that they could have done a lot more. K5 TSK back to net.
Okay, N5BB, Bill.
Yes, this is N5BB. As far as the special effects, I think they purposely left his native planet, Newton's native planet, as rather vague. It's kind of a dream. He's dreaming, and there's all these flashbacks. And you don't really know if the flashbacks are what's occurring now on that other planet, or if it's his memories. It's not exactly clear through all that, whether he's dreaming of things, he's imagining things, what would be, what could be, or what is, or what was. It's a little, the movie's vague about that, I think purposely. As far as the other special effects, they purposely left it very simple. There's only a few scenes with him with the special, well, in the movie that he took off the contact lenses, but of course in reality he put on the contact lenses, and then he's got his head made up to appear like he's got like no ears or whatever, a different looking body, which freaks out Mary Lou. But they kept that very simple. And I didn't exactly understand all this plotting and all these tests they were doing on him. That was confusing to me, that part of the movie. But I didn't really notice very many other special effects. I agree the cinematography was really dazzling, especially in the first, actually various places through the movie. There's these fantastic scenes of the outdoors, and I think this kind of ties in with my memory of the 70s and things about this kind of interest in kind of returning to nature or the outdoors or the natural world. And the humans have kind of screwed things up because the outdoor world was beautiful in this, New Mexico scenes, etc. So, and it's quite possible, as I think Brenda said, that the cinematographer was just kind of showing off some of these techniques, but it came across very good. I think it was filmed very well. And I think the editing of that was probably done pretty reasonably. The director chose to have all these flashbacks, and that's a little confusing, but any movie with flashbacks is confusing. And also, you have to kind of understand this progression in time, where Newton does not age visibly, but all these other people do near the end. So anyway, it's an intriguing movie. It wasn't meant to be simple. I think it was meant to be, in one sense, kind of experimental. And, it came a few years after the Kubrick films, 2001 and A Clockwork Orange, and some other films in that ilk. And this one is also rather, in one sense, experimental and trying to look at the world around us from a completely different viewpoint. Kind of open our eyes at what's happening. So, by the way, at one point in there, they mentioned Ad Astra. The person talking to Newton didn't realize why he didn't understand that, because it had a connection to the British Armed Services. And I'm sitting here right now with an issue of Ad Astra, which is the Journal of the National Space Society, on the table next to me. And there is a new science fiction movie, Ad Astra, which is going to be released in, I believe, May is the planned release of this coming year. So I'm being bombarded with references to Ad Astra, to the stars. It's BB. Thanks.
Okay, let's see where we are. Tom, K5 ICX, you're up.
There you go. Push pedal under the table. I think we're talking about the special effects in the film, and I was listening to some of the comments which supplement what we did on the second round. As far as special effects are not, they don't need to be there. Any film, science fiction film, doesn't necessarily have to have tons of special effects. That's one of the things that has gone out of control in recent years, especially in the last 5 years. Superheroes and everything else going on. That the answer to everything is tons of special effects. No, it is not. It is still the story. And that still applies, I think, for meaningful science fiction, meaningful storylines. Less is more, and more is less. And in the process of making a good story, you have to spend your time with your characters. Let me reset. One of the things that's never been made into a movie is the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov. While at times it drives me nuts and it is difficult for me to follow, in the end, you can't make that into a movie because there's no special effects. Everything happens in a frickin' room. So this kind of falls into that same category in the sense that, are you going to talk about the people or are you going to talk about the big events or what? And I think the best stories always take place with people. What is it? Star Trek has one of the episodes, I think it's Chain of Command, with Picard, and he is captive, and there are four lights, whatever it is. And in that episode is remembered, not the big battles, and not the big blow somebody's head off, or any of that stuff. It is the character of the men, the character of the people who are involved in stories, and I think this one does that. And it works for some, it doesn't work for others, it works for me. Yeah, it's 20 minutes too damn long. I'm going to tell you that right now. But you take the 20 minutes out, I think the story really does resonate. It does to me. So that's it for me. Special effects, none. It's okay. Some shag carpet worked, and some little pointy things everywhere worked. But in the end, that's not the important part. I think this overall, I think this movie worked for me. KE5ICX.
I'm not sure any of the other check-ins have come back. K5JDW may be still here, but he only saw the movie a long time ago. Does anybody, let's just open it up for anybody, and I'm going to quickly agree the special effects for a non-event. Who cares? And I do find it interesting the guy's last name is Newton. I wonder if they thought about Isaac Newton when they named that. I'm just curious. Okay, if you have any more comments about anything, please come now, and we'll put you on the list. Go ahead.
JDW.
K5JDW, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Brittany. You're right. I didn't have any more comments. I wish I said, I was thinking in the background, I had a good laugh. I thought I heard Aaron in the background say, well, I was boring. Unless I misheard. K5JW.
Yeah, I think you did. I agree with some people that the special effects that we see so much of in modern movies has been tens of millions of dollars on special effects, and it just, to me, it's just so boring after a while. It's way overdone. And this movie was made with $1.5 million. So even back in those days, it was extremely an extravagant movie. They filmed in Mexico, but they brought British film crews over, which is unusual, I thought. Okay, anybody else have an opinion?
N5BB. W5EBB.
N5BB, go ahead, Bill.
When you read about this film, you find that apparently 20 critical minutes was cut from the film to make it shorter. And evidently people that saw it with those 20 minutes in it thought that maybe they understood it better. But they chopped, I don't know what 20 minutes they chopped out, but they did chop out 20 minutes. Which would have made it even longer, Tom. But, don't know. It was treated, when it came out, as an experimental film. It is. I think it's still very interesting, though. It's IBB.
Okay, and W5EBB. David, you had another comment?
Yes, this isn't about this movie, but relating to 2001: A Space Odyssey, since a few people mentioned it. The version of it that some of you saw this past summer in IMAX is now available, not in IMAX form, but in regular movie form on, was it 4K or Blu-ray? Be sure you select the right one. But I had pre-ordered it, and after 3 slips by the DVD production facilities, or for some reason it was delayed. I finally got it a few days ago, and it's really, really good. It looks great. And 2001: A Space Odyssey, as someone mentioned, did not do well in its initial release. Empty theaters. But then a few weeks into it, this documentaries that's on the bonus features, they found that some young people were sitting up in the front row, and it was starting to develop a crowd several weeks after it was released. And the person in the documentary says, well, these were probably young people who were Probably just we're smoking pot and we're a little high, and they really enjoyed the visuals. But finally, the movie obviously gained a lot of traction, deservedly so. W5EBB.
Over. Up the building.
Yes, I clearly remember seeing it first run and not having any idea what was going on. Reading the book helped a lot later, but it was kind of a thing. People said, "Oh, well, you have to be stoned to see it," which I wasn't doing, and a lot of people did go back again and again stoned because apparently something in those weird scenes at the end that appealed to them, and I don't know how many people were like me, pretended to like it more than I did. He didn't want to be in opposition to people that much, but he grew on me, and I really love it now. But at the time, I was like, I don't understand as much. I don't know what's going on, and it's just not all that fun. Okay. Tom, do you have something for next week?
Oh, yes, I do. I have to remember. Oh, I remember. Oh, by the way, just to remind everybody, I just wanted to mention, I think I did in one of the previous nets, this movie had Jim Lovell in it. Jim Lovell, he was a pilot on Apollo 8, and he appeared in this movie very briefly in Man Who Fell to Earth, and that's what I would mention that. Our next movie is Doctor Who, the movie. Doctor Who, the movie. No, not that Doctor Who from 1966. This is the one from 1996, which takes place in the future. 1999. Yes, 1999, just before, what was it, 2000? Maybe 2000 and the millennium. So I put it up. I did not update anything because all of a sudden the Facebook page had an account about it. I don't know why. It's out there. At any rate, I'll send it through the email as well as through Afterglow Movie. So let me reset. For anybody still listening, if you're interested, I will send the direct links to you as far as the movie that will be next week, so you can participate actively. Just send an email to Kilo 5 India Charlie X-Ray KE5ICX at yahoo.com. That's the best way to do it. And just let me know that you want to be a part of the list, and I'll put you in the list. And you, too, can find out what the next movie will be. You can also make suggestions for the net. I will put them in. My idea is that I try and put in movies that everybody can watch without having to pay some sort of money for it, as legal as it can be. And that's what I try and do. Let me know, and I will put it on the list. This is KE5ICX, back to net control.
Alright, well, it's after midnight. We're going to shut this thing down. So, WB5OZL clear.
Just in case anyone is still listening, I couldn't sneak in with a final comment there. A fun, even-going movie that's much easier to follow is The Hunger, an unconventional horror vampire movie. NT5TM.
Good nets tonight, everybody. Thanks. K5 JDW.
I want to see Mr. Lawrence. I've never seen that film, so I think that one's going on the list as well. I was impressed with his acting ability. who knows? You know, anybody can be an actor. Some people can be good actors. W5FC.
By the way, someone, I think it was Brenda, was talking about Newton, and there, of course, were various references to Isaac Newton and to other related things. I believe the hymn they were singing in the church was a William Blake thing, who had written about Newton, and there were some other references. So there were literary references tucked into the movie at various locations, such as the book that Rip Torn was sending, Bryce was sending to his daughter. And did you notice the Icarus thing where they both had a painting and they both showed Icarus going into the water? There is various literary references in this, so there's hidden stuff in there that doesn't appear at first glance. See you later. Inside BB Clear.
Bill, this is W5EBB. I think we'll have to put on our philologist caps to see a lot of those insights, but I have no doubt that they are there. Interesting comment. And great net and great movie selection. Thanks, everybody. 7-3, W5EBB.
I'll say goodnight, but I thought this film had more going for it than maybe was on the surface, and I enjoyed the heck out of it. Wait till next week when we go to the future. It takes place just before, what's it? New Year's? In 1996. No, 2000. No, 1999. I can't remember. 7:30, everybody. Have a good evening. KE5ICX. I'm Claire.